11 months a year, the giant Indianapolis Motor Speedway stands silent, beckoning. In May, the scream of the racing engine matches the roar of the crowd, and it's race time again. Time for the ultimate test in motorsports. To qualify is 4 laps, 10 miles on an empty track against the clock. The 73rd running of the Indianapolis 500 begins today. Man and machine stand ready. Nerves taut. The last time this track saw competition was the race itself a year ago. And what a race it was.
And there it is. And the 1988 Indianapolis 500, the 72nd running is underway. Danny Sullivan moves to the outside and then dives into the lead in the first turn. Danny Sullivan leads coming across the short chute, followed by Rick Mears, Al Unser, and now Al is being challenged by his son for third place. Mario Andretti drops to fourth. Danny Sullivan leads down the backstretch. Then Mears. Now watch this fight here. Yellow flag is out as a car against the wall. Roberto Guerrero, and it looks to be Scotty Brayton. A third car is there as well. On the first lap, exactly what is the most fearsome moment of the race, what we have feared, what everyone fears. The yellow flag is out. Less than a lap is complete, and the race is running under yellow. Pace car rolls into the pit area, and Ludwig Heimreich cracks the wall coming off of the fourth turn. Everybody follows up behind him. Will everyone miss him? That's the question. He continues to spin. Danny Sullivan right there and part of it. Ludwig Heimreich Jr., as they come back to the green flag, in trouble off of the fourth turn. Danny Sullivan cracks the wall. Danny Sullivan, he had a glory hit at the car. He has no control over that car. Ricochets off the wall again, and the yellow flag comes out.
2 laps, 5 miles to go. You're on board with Michael Andretti running third.
And his side pod is loose, Paul. You see it in the low right of the screen. It's blown away. His side pod is blown away, and it will bring out the yellow caution flag. Cars will have to maintain the order in which they are standing right now, which, of course, has Rick Mears in the lead.
The yellow flag out. Will this be Rick Mears' third Indy win, aided by the yellow? He's ruled the last half of the race.
So on to the main straightaway, the fourth and final turn. The final lap now being completed. The pace car will actually see the checkered flag first. And there is the checkered flag alongside the yellow. Rick Mears has won his third Indianapolis 500, and Chevrolet has won at Indy.
The road to the Borg-Warner Trophy, the symbol of an Indy victory, is long and hard. The machines are ready. Millions of dollars of high-tech engineering, carefully designed and lovingly assembled. Each of its thousands of parts a piece of precision. The drivers are the pinnacle of the craft, champions all from a variety of motorsports. The Indy 500 is a lifelong dream for each. Today they search for their chance to join the fabled 33. For some, qualifying at Indianapolis is the toughest job they face all year.
The 4 laps here, I think, are about as nerve-wracking as anything I've ever done. Whether qualifying anywhere, race anywhere, or anything else. This 4 laps is probably the strongest test there is on the nerves.
Lots of times you put your left foot over your right foot that's on the throttle and push it down extra hard.
It's pretty tough. I mean, because of the fact that you have to go out and you have to drive the car over its limit to make the race and to do the best job you can qualifying. And when you're at Indy and you're going around here at 220 plus miles an hour, and they tell you, or you tell yourself, you have to drive the car over what it's capable of running, and it just sends tingles up your spine, and so you got to get out there and do it.
But one man won't get his chance to do it today, Danny Sullivan. On Thursday, the 1985 champion lost a Colleen at 220 miles an hour. He spun and slammed the wall. The car was destroyed. Danny suffered a mild concussion and a broken forearm. Many thought that Danny might take the pole, but it will not be. He will wait a week before he tries to qualify. The pole position determined today, and its $100,000 prize could very well fall to the defending champion, Rick Mears. Last year's pole sitter and holder of the 1- and 4-lap track records. He's been the quickest man most of the practice. The selection process is underway. Whose number will appear at the top of the pylon? Whose name will be written in history from the world's greatest race course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? It's the run for the pole. ABC Sports presents the first day of time trials for the 73rd running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Well, when we take a look at the weather here in Indianapolis, the temperature is right, the humidity is correct, even the winds are something that are more than acceptable for qualification attempts. The problem is in that word, rain. It is raining at Indianapolis. It's rained through most of the night. It cleared for a little bit in the morning, and then a few moments ago, it started raining once again. Hello, I'm Paul Page from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the world's greatest race course, and it is in fact raining, but race fans don't give up. They're here, they're ready to go racing, as are we. We'll be here with you live for the next hour and a half, and when you have rain just before qualifications, it in fact can actually add to the excitement. It certainly adds to the tension. Now, there is a question about Danny Sullivan. Danny Sullivan was involved in an accident practicing for the qualifications today. He is still at Indianapolis Methodist Hospital, but they have reset his broken arm. He's really just resting over at the hospital now, and he will be fit and ready to go. They'll release him from the hospital sometime tomorrow, and he'll be ready to qualify for the Indianapolis 500 on the second weekend of time trials next weekend. We'll be here with you all afternoon. Plenty of action here, despite the fact that we have rain. And, of course, ABC Sports will have plenty of action from across the country and around the world. Now, a little east of here, over at Dublin, a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, is the Memorial Tournament. Let's go there now for a report from Jack Whitaker. Jack? Thank you, Jack. And then a little bit later today on Wide World of Sports, it's across the ocean to the streets of Monte Carlo, the world-famous Formula One race, by the seaside and around the casino, as the contenders in the Formula One World Championship continue their season-long fight looking for the world champion. Then from horsepower to horses, it's the Pimlico Special for 4-year-olds and up. This, in fact, is the first day of the spring season at Pimlico in Baltimore, and there'll be plenty of action from there as well. So, Wide World of Sports coming up a little bit later, the golf, and, of course, continued reports from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, Sam, we're talking about a waiting game now. Sam Posey, what does it mean to the drivers?
Well, Paul, of course, in one sense, it means very little. Qualification runs are such a spur-of-the-moment business anyway, really. You do things you've never done before. You push your car to limits you've never experienced before. You are yourself pushing into a kind of unknown, and really there's no way to plan for any of that. But on the other hand, for a driver, there's a sort of qualifying day metabolism. I mean, you know when you've got to perform. And suddenly, to have that schedule knocked out from underneath you and not to know when you're going to be on stage, that is very, very tough, and especially for some of the men that come first in line today. And I speak of Al Unser Sr., the rookie, Scott Pruitt, and of course it's very, very hard on rookies, for Teo Fabi and some of the others. There will be very little warning. They're going to have to get themselves together to do the thing that is arguably the toughest they're going to do all year, and it's going to have to come to them very quickly, that self-control that they need.
All right, well, let's go down to the pits now. Our Brian Hammonds is with the chief steward of the 500-mile race, Tom Binford.
All right, Tom has been in contact with the Weather Service. What is the prognosis today?
I think just more of the same. It could clear up and not have any more rain here, but the odds are still that there'll be some rain.
When the track, if it does stop raining, how long will it take for the track to dry?
I would say it'd take from 2.5 to 3 hours, and that's using 6 of these blowers and using a lot of trucks. And it also depends on how much wind there is, and if there's any sun. If there's sun and wind and ideal conditions, you might do a little shorter than that.
What we have to do now, Paul Page, is get it to stop raining.
Well, Brian, we'll do our absolute best to convince the skies of that possibility. Now, throughout the week, it's been practice, as usual, every day. But the last hour of the day, the winds die down, and it becomes a very special time. It's called happy hour. Here's Jack Arute.
Through the initial days of May, there exists a daily event that both fans and drivers anxiously await.
It's 5 o'clock, time for happy hour.
Happy hour is a social event, a mixture of sounds, spirits, and scintillating speeds. Every day, fans gather from 5 to 6 p.m., standing sentry in the stands, awaiting their heroes' record-setting exploits.
You want to be able to see just how you stack up against the field. And you know everybody's putting their best number forward, so that's the time to really let it all hang out.
It's good for everybody. You know, it's good for myself, you know, ego-wise. It's good for the team. It's good for the sponsors. It's good for everybody.
Gusting winds kept happy hour speeds down until yesterday when Rick Mears was the first to signal his pole intentions with a lap at over 225 miles per hour. Then his Penske teammate, Al Unser Sr., bettered the mark to sit atop the happy hour heat. But with 15 minutes remaining, Mears wrestled the front-runner roll away, posting a 2.5-mile run of 226.231 miles per hour, leaving Team Penske the happiest of happy hour. As fans counted the hours until speed runs would resume in earnest, and darkness began to blanket the track, there was little time for the crews to enjoy the spoils of their work. After all, their speeds were posted in happy hour, and the dawn would initiate their quest in earnest. The times and speeds would carry the designation of official, and the prize to the swiftest would be the pole position for the Indianapolis 500. I'm Jack Arute, and we're with the man that set everybody on their ear yesterday during that happy hour period with a 226-mile-per-hour lap. Rick Mears, what's the weight doing to you right now with the rain coming down? You were quick yesterday.
Well, you know, obviously it'd be nice to get out there and get the qualifying done today, and that's what we hope to do. If it clears up and get things dried out, we can go out there and run. So, you know, but it's the same for everybody, and you just have to sit back and try to relax and just hope for the best.
You came off the victory last year, your third Indianapolis 500, and you've been the terror of the track since they opened practice here. How much is left in your Penske car? Can you go faster than 226?
I think, you know, with the conditions being the way they are, if it stays cool and the wind stays down, you know, we've got a couple other things that we want to try, and if they work out the direction we'd like, then, you know, hopefully we should be able to gain some. And but really, you never know until you see the flag fall.
Now, what about the competition? The fellow that's second fastest yesterday in happy hour was your teammate, Al Unser Sr. Any conversations yesterday as to who may be able to get the jump in pole position qualifying?
Well, yeah, I wanted to go look at his setup and see what he was doing. No, he's running very strong, and he's going to be right there, I tell you. He's running quick.
If we do dry off today, what will be the key to clipping 4 very fast laps here, Rick?
I think just getting the right balance on the car to where the tires, you know, will stay evenly matched throughout the 4 laps. With the cool weather the way it is and the track surface, you know, as smooth as it is, and also the Goodyear tire this year is much more progressive, and it does stay with you better. I think, you're going to see a lot more consistent laps, speeds, you know, equal to each other this time than you have in past.
Well, yeah, because last year he qualified very well, as you know, on the pole, but you had a 220-plus lap, but then it dropped off to about 219. Now, some of the crew members have been whispering behind the door here that maybe 227 for an average is a possibility. How do you, as the pilot, feel about that?
They've got more confidence than I do. You know, it's not out of the realm of possibility. It could happen, but it's going to be tough to get 4 of them that quick.
Well, you can believe Paul Page that if it's possible, this fellow may very well do it if the rain subsides today. Paul?
Well, Rick Mears looks pretty calm right now. Some of the skies have begun to clear, and there is the possibility of qualifications coming up. We'll be back right after this. We're back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the first day of time trials for the Indianapolis 500. And what we're looking at here is the qualifying order. Now, that was determined by a draw last evening. And as we look down through the qualifying order, it's also expected that many of these individuals will not actually attempt a qualification attempt when their opportunity does come. But as a safety precaution, they draw for every car. That may be very meaningful, depending on the rain, because the Penske team did draw for Danny Sullivan. And should there be an extensive delay, that means that any driver that's in this qualifying list is in position for an opportunity to run for the pole. It doesn't matter what day he actually runs for the pole on. Now, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway has a tremendous and very long history. Those are the suites over in Turn 2. They're corporate suites that overlook the track. Here in 1975, the track just in front of these suites was the scene of a most spectacular accident. Here's Jack Arute.
Now
now here we come down with A.J. Foyt beginning to move through traffic, and he's running in behind Tom Sneva. Eldon Rasmussen, number 58, is in the yellow car coming around turn number 2. And oh, we've got an axe. Sneva is on the wall. He goes into a terrible flip, and we have a fire. The engine is ripped from the back of the car and comes tumbling across. A.J. Foyt was right behind him. He was able to avoid it somehow. But Tom Sneva is in the car. He's moving around. He's trying to get out. An incredible accident on turn number 68, Tom Sneva. There is fire. Sneva can't seem to get out of the car. The fireman is there, spraying it down. Question is there fire in the cockpit? But what a spectacular flip, and the fire suit hopefully will protect young Tom Sneva as he struggles to get out of the car, and Jackie, it appears that he is trapped in that car.
Yeah, he is, but he's got lots of help there. They're obviously dousing the fire. You can't see the alcohol flame, of course, but he looks as if he's okay. He's certainly moving around. I don't think I've ever seen a driver move so easily after such a terrible accident. That's one of the most horrifying crashes I've ever seen. To have a driver come out of that, even moving in the way he is. Now look at the replay of the accident. They go into the turn together. As they go into turn 1 there, you can see they're going even, going into turn 2 even. As they go through there together, somehow they touch. Now you see Sneva in the blue car low down, and he actually goes into what I would call a classic open wheel racing car action. It climbs over the front wheel of the yellow car, of Rasmussen's car. This is a type of accident that can occur. It seems to be that Tom Sneva was in the inside line. Rasmussen stayed parallel with him, but look at that car slam against the wall, burst into flame, the car disintegrating as it goes through. The suites there, the people very close to the accident, the wheels are coming off, the engine is ripped off completely. What an accident. It looked to me as if these two cars tried to go through turn 2 together. I don't think it was Tom Sneva's fault, but I can't honestly say that it was Rasmussen's fault either. The yellow flag is out, but it looks to me as if it was just a standard motor racing accident. They're still getting Tom out. He's standing up, Keith. That's a miracle to me.
Incredible.
What a lucky young man this is. He's walking.
Well, Tom Sneva went on to write several records himself, being the first man ever to tour the Speedway at 200 miles an hour, and then, of course, coming back to win the Indianapolis 500. And you've had some fast 200-mile-an-hour laps this year, Tom, in a Buick power plant.
Yeah, we do. We've got the Buick running real well, and we were looking forward to today. I don't know if we're going to get anything in today or not, but, you know, we had that thin coat of STP all over the car to make it real slippery, and we were ready to go.
What are your recollections of that crash over there in turn number 2? Does any one particular thing come to mind when you look back now?
I think what happens is you go into shock, because the last thought that I had was that I was dreaming I was upside down in the race car, and then dreams sort of fade off. That's all I remember, and I don't know. I think it's nature's way of protecting you from serious situations like that, because we just blanked it out, and although we weren't unconscious, we don't have any recall of it.
So much talk about it, though, through the years. Do you ever kind of maybe for a second or so think about it when you hurtled through there at about 220?
I think the following year we did a little bit, and in the following race after that, you're not concerned about whether you want to get back in the race car, but you're concerned whether you're going to be able to press the button down as hard and run as close to that ragged edge, that fine line of control and non-control. And, you know, it took a couple days. We were a little ginger with the throttle the first day or so back after that accident.
Now, a lot of the insiders have highly touted the Chevrolet power plants, but some people say that maybe some sandbag may be coming from the Buick power plants. Do you have a legitimate shot at the pole here?
I think we do. We're, you know, we thought we might have even a bigger advantage than we do, but, you know, Chevrolets are a little bit quicker down the straightaway, but we've got, you know, our Buick handling well through the corners, and if we can get her down the straightaway just a little bit quicker, we're going to be right there, and, you know, we'll just have to see what happens.
Well, like the rest of the drivers, Paul Page, he's standing by.
Well, the rain for the moment has abated. There is just a light drizzle in some sections of the track. There is still the possibility of qualifications as the skies lighten over Indianapolis. We'll be back. 19, Frenchman Rene Thomas was the first to qualify at better than 100 miles an hour.
Just a moment ago in the third round of the Memorial, Curtis String.
Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A lot of fans lined up to go into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame Museum and see all the magnificent cars, both former winners and classic and vintage cars on display there. It is really worthwhile. Now,
It continues to rain at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but it's a very light drizzle at the moment. Bobby Unsert's only drizzling in some sections of the race course. And what's really important is the skies off to the west. There's an old tradition here. Everybody calls Terre Haute, Indiana, which is about 70 miles south and west, and says, is it raining there? So you can bet the phone lines are burning up right now. Now, Bobby, we have a new track surface. And when the new track surface was laid, that means it's all green, brand new. Then they began to practice on it. Now the rain washed it overnight, washed it in the morning, is being washed, in fact, now to a degree. What change is that going to make?
Well, first of all, Paul, new pavement just really makes it fast like you were bringing up there, because new pavement just loves tires, anything else. Secondly, as the pavement gets old, it starts getting smooth. The sun bakes it, and some of the pavement goes away, and the little tiny rocks are showing up, and it gets a little bit slippery. Now, that isn't happening now. And all the rubber that's been laid out like this last week is all today like getting washed away. So, whenever the cars come back out, the racetrack is going to be awesomely fast. Or when the track dries, it's going to be the fastest probably of any time that it's ever been in history. Just think about that. And all the rubber is going to be gone. It'll just be real good. And another thing that's really important, Goodyear has made, they're into the radial tires now here at Indianapolis. They've made a special tire just for the new pavement. That makes it even faster yet. And that's probably the reason we're seeing the speeds so awesomely fast today.
As a matter of fact, most of the drivers say it's probably the best racing tire that Goodyear has ever made for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, your nephew, Al Unser Jr., has figured prominently into the early part of the season for the Indy cars. The first two races under the sanction of CART, this, of course, under the USAC sanctioning. Let's go back and take a look at the first two races of the 1989 season.
The IndyCar season began in the Phoenix Desert, where it left off last year, with the Penske team again showing their power. The front row at Phoenix International was Penske. Newly crowned national champion Danny Sullivan outside, and Indy winner Rick Mears on the pole with a new track record. The two Penske cars reigned over the rest of the field, challenged only by the Andrettis, racing on the same team for the first time in IndyCar history. Bobby Rahal's first drive with his new team ended in an angry tangle with rookie Bernard Jourdain. Despite a lengthy pit stop, Rick Mears took over the race and drove away, winning without challenge, followed by Al Unser Jr. and Danny Sullivan. For the Penske team, it was first and third. A week later, the complexion of things changed on the streets of Long Beach. The front of the field consisted of the new generation, Michael Andretti outside and Al Unser Jr. on the pole for the first time in his career. Both were former winners at Long Beach. Little Al roared away from the pack, easily outdistancing the early challengers. Bobby Rahal fought with Danny Sullivan, but neither could chase young Unser and the Andrettis. The Penske cars, so strong at Phoenix, never hit their stride at Long Beach. With the pit stops, the Newman-Haas team moved Mario Andretti out in front. Little Al started to close on Mario. We were on board with Little Al as he closed on the leader. In turn 3, he pushed inside but lost control, locked the brakes, and rammed Andretti. That confrontation was hotly debated for several weeks. Was Al Unser Jr. too aggressive, or was it just a racing accident? Both men were fighting hard. Mario was wide. Little Al saw a chance and tried, but hit Mario. 2 weeks ago, Al and Mario Andretti met privately and resolved their differences. After the accident, Little Al's car was lame but still lightning fast. Al took the checkered flag for the second year in a row. An angry Mario Andretti hitched a ride home with his son. Mario was absolutely furious.
Well, he just blatantly just punted me right out of the way, and here we're going for the lead. This is the second time in a few months. In the last race in Miami, the same way. Now, if that's the way that he wants to play, I think it's pretty sorry. Pretty sorry way to drive, really.
And in Victory Circle, Al Unser Jr. apologized for the accident. Now we're back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Some of the stands still with fans in them. And this is the new garage area at the Speedway, the old gasoline alley, completely refurbished, where most of the drivers have now retired. And let's go down to one of the garages, that of the first man in the qualification line, rookie Steve Butler. He's with Brian Hammonds.
Thank you, Paul. This car used to say Stoops, but after what happened Wednesday, oops is probably more appropriate. Steve Butler hit the wall hard and actually broke his collarbone, but he's able to drive. How do you feel?
I feel great, Brian. I'm still here, and we've got a new race car, so I'm looking forward to making the most of it. I don't see any reason why we can't do just as well as we would have done if we wouldn't have crashed.
When and if we go qualifying today, you're number one. Make you a little nervous as a rookie?
No. You know, really what we need to do is get out, and we only got about 20 laps of testing on the new car since we've got it, and it's a different type of car than the one that we had, so we need to get out and get it fine-tuned a little bit more. And what we're going to do is go out and run the 30-minute practice session, and if some of the ideas that we came up with last night work, we'll go ahead and get in line and do our thing. If it doesn't work, then we'll sit tight and make sure we get everything working before we take our attempt.
You're from Indiana. Is racing here a dream to you?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people have asked me that, and when I first got started out in racing, I was just happy to be racing anything, and as things progressed, I really didn't expect to get here. And through the efforts of my sprint car owners, Jeff and Terry Stoops from Anderson, all of a sudden I'm here, and it's great. We've got some good sponsors, Bull Chevrolet and Delco Battery and Light 98 radio station. And what I really didn't expect is after I crashed Wednesday, I didn't expect to be back. I was really down and thought that, you know, things were going really super well. We were running quick and doing good before that, and I thought that it was all over. And to have the medical officials okay me to drive with a broken collarbone was a big step, and then to have Jeff and Terry Stoops buy another race car, I couldn't be happier.
All right, Steve Butler, if it dries out, he'll be the first one out today. Paul?
Well, he looks calm, but can you imagine the pressure on that young man, a rookie, first in line to qualify for the Indianapolis 500-mile race? We'll be back with more coverage of the Indy 500 time trials after this message and a word from our ABC station. We're back live at Indianapolis, waiting for the start of time trials. Let's go to the garage area and Brian Hammonds.
And Mario Andretti is waiting patiently, which is really all you can do on a day like today. Mario, waiting like this, does it kind of try on the nerves?
Well, a bit. Of course, we're all ready to go. Everybody was just geared up to just go for it. Of course, like you do every qualifying day, and when you get an interruption, you know, it just disrupts everything. But you know, it's no good for anyone, not for us, not for the fans. But you have to endure. That's one thing we just don't have any control over.
This is your first race since what happened at Long Beach. Has that whole issue settled down between you and Little Al?
Oh, yeah, it's settled down. We talked. The only thing he forgot to send me a check for the money it cost me.
Do you still feel that Little Al may be a little too aggressive in his driving?
Well, you have to be aggressive to win, obviously, and, you know, I wouldn't ask him to change his style in any way, obviously, because I don't want anybody to just tell me that, but sometimes there are ways of doing it without causing grief for other people, though.
How do you feel driving with Michael Andretti? Is it really sunk in yet? Are you two working well together?
It's been working wonderfully, and the team is just absolutely where I was hoping it would be. In other words, at the level what I was hoping it would be, and I think so far everybody's happy and everybody's talking to one another, so there's harmony there. And it's a bit early to tell, of course, because the season is young, but everything, as I said, that we had planned so far is there, and we're just ready to go to work and be competitive and do the best job that we can.
Is there a little friendly rivalry there? You were chasing his speeds most of the week. I'm sure he probably enjoyed that.
Well, that's the way it is, you know. It's competitive business, and you know, sometimes you eat the bear, next time it eats you. And Michael had the upper hand there for a while. The car was working better for him. The line was working better for him, and I had to work on just changing some of my style. But that's the way it is, and as I say, the next time it's in reverse. But the important thing is that we're both right there, and that we're both competitive. As I say, and then the race itself, I think, is another story.
All right, Mario, best of luck when you finally get out there.
Well, we'll all wait like the rest of us.
All right, Paul.
Well, waiting too is young Michael Andretti, who says it's a whole lot more comfortable going to dinner when your father is also your teammate. Well, rain has often been a factor at the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Back in 1975, it helped Bobby Unser.
There is that rain.
Oh, and it's very heavy, Keith. It's almost thunder rain. It's going to absolutely flood the racetrack. Look at everybody running, but look how heavy the rain is. What are these cars going to do in this sort of rain?
They're going to start slipping and sliding. It is a cloudburst. An old-fashioned Midwest thunderstorm has hit with fury here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Remember, these cars have got slick tires on. They're not supposed to run in the rain. These cars can aquaplane at even about 20 miles an hour. You can see the starter, Pat Bidan, there. He's got the checkered flag in his hand.
All right, let's check the standings now. It becomes vital. Who's leading? It is Bobby Unser who has the lead. Johnny Rutherford is second. They're just barely moving along. They're beginning to hydroplane. They're throwing up a rooster tail. A.J. Foyt is running in third. Pancho Carter is 4. Roger McCluskey 5. Bill Futerbaugh 6. And George Snyder is 7. They're wobbling all over the place. Here comes Unser and Foyt coming along. A.J. is a lap down, almost a lap down to Bobby. Bobby Unser in the blue car on the right is the leader as they work their way so very carefully. At this point, however, remember, Bobby Unser must be very careful because if he slides off the racetrack, he could still lose this race to Johnny Rutherford, who is feeling his way around. It's like walking on grease.
Remember, these drivers are not used to driving in the rain, and the cars are certainly not set up. I've driven in the rain, of course, a lot of times because in Europe we do drive in the rain, but there we have tires. And there's cars all over the place. I just thought that with the aquaplaning and the amount of water on the road, cars are spinning, and look at this car.
That's Billy Vukovic.
Billy Vukovic's trying to control it. He's heading for the infield. Oh, he's going up on the fence, and he's coming, and he's driving it away.
The red flag is up. The race is stopped. The checkered flag is up. Pat Bidan stopping the race. There's Johnny Rutherford. He's running in second place.
Impossible conditions for these drivers. Look at that. It's almost fog. And the car's reversing down the front straightaway.
You can't see it, perhaps, but Bobby Unser coasting through the crowd there. There were 4 cars tangled up, and coming off that 4th turn, A.J. Foyt coming along. He's going to be 3rd, and there's your winner, car number 48. Bobby Unser wins on a driving rainstorm. Oh, there is your winner. Cruising around, accepting the plaudits of the crowd, and Bobby's going to take his parade lap. He doesn't care if he has to get an oar to get that thing around, but he's going to enjoy it. Let's have another look at the escapade of Billy Vukovic coming out of turn 4.
Well, that car got loose there, only in the water with aquaplaning. As I said before, there's no tread in these tires. They are slick tires. This is what they're intended, but Billy Vukovic is reversing fast. And look at that man avoiding him there. He slams into the fence. He almost springs back on, and he did drive the car back.
Here comes your victor, splashing down toward victory lane. I have never in my life seen this kind of an end to an Indy 500.
Well, it was an incredible finish for the Indianapolis 500. I can remember standing in the pits on that day, and most of the grandstand couldn't see that the rain was coming up from the west. I mean, it was bright, it was clear, it was pretty, and then all of a sudden the skies opened. Could you tell Bobby Unser that that rain was coming?
I had no idea, Paul. In fact, I was on the radio with Dan Gurney, and there was no warning whatsoever. I'm going down the back straightaway, and to me it didn't look like rain. It just looked like a hurricane hit all of a sudden. And, of course, the guys that you see spinning all over the racetrack, most of them just didn't have any experience driving in the rain, and thank God I did.
I'll tell you, those slick tires were not designed to run in that kind of weather. I think Johnny Rutherford, A.J. Foyt, and, of course, Bobby Unser, you were probably the only 3 that were out on the course that didn't spin at the end of that lap.
And you can also see the visibility was so bad to people that wouldn't know their way around the track. You just wouldn't know where you were because you couldn't see far enough to tell where the road was going. People have surely driven in rainstorms that are that bad, and they can just equate. You can't see anything.
Okay, now that leads us to the more obvious question. We do know that some forms of racing run in the rain. They're rain tires. They're nice, treaded tires. Bobby, you want to strap a rain tire on and try to qualify at Indianapolis or race here?
Not here. Normally, as we said a little while ago, you have rubber on top of the asphalt. And boy, when you get that linked up with the rain, it makes the best lubricant for rubber you ever saw, and just makes the cars get loose. So at these kind of speeds, at like 200 miles an hour, 225, no way.
Now down in the garage area right now, most of the crews have moved both car and equipment back there, and as you can see in the Patrick garage, a little bit of lunch as they relax, trying to decide exactly what will happen sometime this afternoon or perhaps tomorrow, perhaps next weekend. Decisions being made. Next on ABC Sports, the top golfers on the PGA Tour battle in the third round at the Memorial Tournament sponsored by Dean Witter. Jack Nicklaus designed the course and will play host. Well, we're back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as ABC Sports continues its live coverage of the first day of time trials at Indianapolis, but it's a very soggy racetrack. Right now, most of the fans have decided to stay somewhere in the grounds, though not necessarily in the grandstands. Now, that is a brand new track surface. It was repaved this year, and Brian Hammonds has a report.
What is now the world's greatest race course started out with a crushed stone and tar surface. But several accidents convinced Speedway officials that the track needed to be paved. At that time, the pits were actually a part of the racetrack. With hopes of making the track safer, over 3 million bricks were laid down around the 2.5-mile oval, thus the name the Brickyard. It was still not an ideal racing surface. World War II saw the great Speedway close for 4 years. It lay in ruin. Whoever thought it would be what it is today? But Tony Holman bought the track for $750,000 and made all the necessary improvements. The track was now asphalt, except for an area of brick on the front straight, and the pits were made of cement. The 70s and 80s saw the track repaved twice more. It was now all asphalt, except for the famous yard of bricks at the start-finish line. But the pits were still a problem. They became very bumpy, sometimes getting the car airborne when entering pit road. So in the fall of 1988, the Speedway repaved the whole track, pits and all. When workers stripped away old surfaces, 80 years of Speedway history were exposed. It took 1 month and 10,000 tons of asphalt, mixed with steel shavings from the mills of Gary, Indiana. And now this grand old track is the best it's ever been.
Well, taking a look at the yard of bricks, a man that blistered those bricks earlier in the week and got to test the new track surface is Emerson Fittipaldi. And Emo, how do you feel about the new surface here?
Oh, it feels beautiful. It has a lot of grip, very smooth. It's really nice.
Now, you've been going very, very quick in your PC 18. You were at almost 225 miles an hour early in the week, and then yesterday you were about third or fourth fastest during happy hour. What are your prospects for the pole position?
You know, I'm looking for, and the whole team has been working very hard on the car. This is the car I crashed in Phoenix. Has been beautiful rebuild, and I think we have a good chance to do a pole.
Now, at Indianapolis, it takes a lot of consistency, and it takes a real smooth, steady driver, someone such as yourself that does quite well. But coming off of the Long Beach race, and we talked to Mario Andretti, and Mario had alluded to the altercation between he and Al Unser Jr., and you were involved in one last year at the Meadowlands and have some first-hand knowledge. Your assessment of the situation with Al Jr. and his driving style, how do you look at it?
No, you know, I think what happened to me between myself and Al Jr. in the Meadowlands race was an unfortunate situation that happened. I think Al Jr. was just too anxious to pass me. He saw opportunity on nearly impossible place, and I think I told Al Jr. afterwards, he owed me one now.
He owes you one, and you hope maybe he could give it to you here at Indianapolis, I'm sure.
I hope he's not going to forget that.
How about a driver, though, when you're in a situation like that, and you've been the victim the other way, I'm sure, in your career, do you have times when it does come back to your mind that, hey, I was involved with this individual maybe a year ago or in a separate race? Do you have that come back in your mind?
I think we all professionals, good professional people, and sure, you have to consider, you know, if we all can do mistakes. I can do a mistake, Mario can do, Al Jr. can do, but he will come back, yes, sure, I would say so. I hope so.
Paul, if it wasn't raining, he wouldn't be anywhere near this calm, cool, and collected because he would already have set his time, but it's kind of a marked contrast to see him here in Gasoline Alley just kind of kick back.
Well, Emerson Fittipaldi is one of those drivers that deals with tension generally by going to sleep, so perhaps he's off for a nap now. We'll be back with more live from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway right after this. You know, Clay Jones broke the 150-mile-an-hour barrier, winning his first of 2 poles.
Well, you can bet they'll be doing a lot of business this afternoon as fans look for some form of diversion at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. As it continues to drizzle just a bit here, there is still the possibility of clearing and still the possibility of race cars on the racetrack before the end of the afternoon. Now, over at Dublin, Ohio, Fuzzy Zeller is now leading by 4 as play is underway there in the Memorial Tournament. And here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it is quite simply a waiting game. Waiting to see whether or not qualifications will take place. Will they take place today? Will, in fact, they take place tomorrow? And, of course, the whole purpose of those qualifications is to try and place your car in the front row. Well, the front row isn't necessarily where one always wants to be, as witness the start of the 1982 500.
Pace car is off the track, but they must await the green flag before the race is underway. Watch the starters platform on the left there. It's still not out. They appear to be in pretty good order in the first 5 or 6 rows at any rate. A little bit ragged towards the back. And look out, a crash before the start of the race. It was Kevin Cogan from the middle of the first row suddenly taking a hard left turn. Tires flying. How in the world could this have happened?
Absolutely no idea, Jim. That's one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen. Remember, they were going about 130, 140 miles an hour when that started, but there is just no explanation, and now one of the favorites is totally out of the race.
And Dale Whittington's car is up against the wall. That's one of the 3 Whittington brothers. Number 40 you saw there was Mario Andretti. There is the number 4 car of Kevin Cogan that appeared to start it all.
Roger Mears is out of the race with a damaged right front. Jim, this is absolutely...
Well, we've seen many, many, many unexpected things, but never a crash even before the green flag fell for the start of the race. We had a terrible crash just after the start back in 1973. That was when Salt Walther spun, started it, rode up the wire caging. 10 or 11 cars were involved. There you saw Cogan trying to explain things.
To Andretti. Poor Andretti spent the entire month here. Mario has getting ready. There's Kevin Cogan.
And now we have a red flag, Sam. That means the race is officially stopped. Remember, it didn't start, but it is officially stopped. It's not just a yellow situation. Let's look at it again. The middle of the front row, just behind him is John Cock. A little out of order.
Yes, but now Cogan just looks absolutely fine. He just fears. It's as if he turned the wheel intentionally, Jim.
Just unbelievable. And that was Andretti coming right into him, into the side of his car from the inside of the second row.
Of course, because that's Andretti now backwards.
Yeah.
Look at the height that wheel reached back in the back of the pack, where on the right of your screen, that's Roger Mears.
Dale Whittington, the yellow car up against the wall.
That tire bouncing along, that's Andretti's car stopped with its back to you on the right.
Maybe you noticed the yellow flag came out instantly.
Instantly, yeah. The officials can't be faulted in any way. They've handled this beautifully. There it is.
Somebody has a theory that...
Unbelievable. And, of course, he hit A.J. Foyt really hard, Jim. And it may be Foyt's luck not to have had his car damaged in any way. I've never seen anything happen on a racetrack for which there was no explanation.
Well, now, you and Jackie have been saying if there ever have been odds-on favorites in this race, it's the 2 cars of the Penske team. One of those cars is gone, and the race hasn't even started yet.
One of the men who started that race in the middle of the pack was Bobby Rahal. And, Bobby, were you close to any of that wreck?
Well, it was sort of happening all around me, but I remember it was an extremely slow pace lap, and everybody was bunched up, and I couldn't believe they were going to give the flag, and then all hell broke loose ahead, and that was that.
And it's still controversial.
Still, very much so.
Yesterday, you threw a message to everybody else around here that you plan on running for the pole, lap of 2:24 something.
Well, I mean, certainly our intention coming here was to try to get pole and try to obviously win the race, but so far the Craco car has been running beautifully. The engine's responding. We have gotten a good balance with the car. We ran at 2:24 yesterday. I just hope we can run at 2:24 today or tomorrow.
How do you feel about not having a Chevrolet, although this engine's running very well?
Well, I think, I kind of like being the underdog. I guess I respond to that pressure, and not that I think we're an underdog, but it's kind of fun to be the only Cosworth up amongst the Chevys.
This Cosworth is showing some big-time potential.
Oh, I think so. I'm very pleased with the way it's going. I've made sure, though, that they understand they've got to keep working and find some more horsepower. It's not over yet, but so far everything's been going real well.
Does this engine have any advantages possibly over the Chevrolet?
Well, I don't know yet, really. Especially this latest version, this will be our first time running it, so it seems to have the straight line speed. Whether it has any more torque or not, I think we'll only find that out at Milwaukee or on the road circuits. But so far, so good.
All right, Bobby Rahal. Paul?
Bobby Rahal has a home just off the fairway at Muirfield. I think he probably wishes he was over at home today. Well, it's raining once again at Indianapolis, but we'll be back with more coverage of the Indianapolis 500 time trials after this message and a word from our ABC stations. One of the two four-time winners, Al Unser, has taken refuge in his motorhome. He, of course, drives for Roger Penske, and we'll be talking to him in just a moment. But first, let's go back over to Jack Whitaker in Dublin, Ohio. Well, back at Indianapolis, the sky's still drizzling a bit. You can see by the windsock on the top of the starting pylon at the start-finish line that the winds are calm. The system seems to be parked over the top of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, interestingly enough, this could really help Danny Sullivan. Now, the weather forecast for tomorrow here in Indianapolis is 30% chance of showers. That is exactly the same forecast that it was 24 hours ago, and it does not seem likely that we're going to have any qualification attempts here today. Now, the lineup drawn last night, all of those men have an opportunity to qualify for the pole as long as the line remains unbroken. And this man, Danny Sullivan, is a member of that lineup. Roger Penske drew for the lineup for Sullivan as well. So if it would be rained out today, and if it would be rained out tomorrow, well, Danny Sullivan has a full week now to recuperate. And he may very well get back into the race car during midweek, practice, and then qualify for the pole just like everybody else when they come back. That assumes 2 days of rain out at Indianapolis. Now, let's talk about Al Unser Sr., a four-time winner at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. How did he get to his 4 wins? Sam Posey reviews that history.
When Al Unser of Albuquerque, New Mexico, won his first Indy 500, the year was 1970. He had just turned 31. Mario Andretti had won the race the year before, and Al's brother Bobby had won the year before that. It was a new generation of champions, and today, 19 years later, they are still making their presence felt. Al's next victory was the following year. Deja vu. It was the same car, the same total dominance of the event. In fact, he led from start to finish. His third win came 7 years later, in 1978, the year after A.J. Foyt won his 4th. Al's victory was the first Indy win for the new English-built Cosworth engine, which would dominate the next decade of Indy racing. And then came 1987. Al had arrived at Indy without a ride and prowled the garages all month waiting for something to open up. And what opened up was this, his 4th Indy win. As his brother Bobby looked on from our ABC booth and Al's car owner Roger Penske ran to meet him in winner's circle, the crowd knew they had been present for a wholly unexpected piece of Indy racing history.
Well, Al Unser enjoyed that just as much as you did at home. In fact, we're in his home away from home. His motor coach here parked outside of Gasoline Alley. And this isn't too shabby when you've got to wait out the rain, Al.
Well, it makes it nice being, you know, having a motorhome like this. But it's not nice for days like this.
What about your feelings having watched, you know, the recap of your 4 victories here and the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500? How does it make you feel to know that you're only one of 2 people that have ever been able to accomplish that feat?
Well, it makes me feel good, but, you know, the same thing comes back to one thing. You have to do it over again, and when you come back each year, you come back with the idea you never have won it. You want to win it again, and that's what I do. I feel that I haven't won this race yet, and you guys won't talk about the numbers till I'm gone.
Well, if you haven't won this race yet, you'd have to be an odds-on favorite, at least for the pole this week, because you turned a lap that was second quickest in happy hour yesterday, and Team Penske seems to be on a juggernaut to the front row like they were 1 year ago. How much quicker can you make that car go?
Oh, I don't know. You know, that's something you never know because of the weather and the racetrack conditions, but you always hope when it comes time to qualify that you have a little left.
Now, his son, Al Jr., was telling a story the other day. He said he followed his father around the racetrack, and his father had told him before the start of that lap that he was running flat out. But when he followed him nose to tail into turn 1, he said, my dad burped the car for a bit, and I went back to him after we got out of the car and said, he's sandbagging, and don't do it to me again, Dad. Paul?
Al Unser Sr., 4-time winner of the Indy 500. Well, the sky begins to lighten just a little bit. It gives people here hope. We'll be back with more from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway right after this. Well, we're back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the first day of time trials. We will continue to be with you throughout the afternoon with update reports, though at this moment it does not appear that there will be qualification attempts today, though the weather changes very quickly in central Indiana, and the skies lightened just a few moments ago, so perhaps there's the possibility that the skies will clear. If they do, it takes about 2 hours to dry the track. We'll also continue to keep you updated on the Memorial Tournament over at Dublin, Ohio, where Fuzzy Zeller is still the leader by 4. Now, here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we've seen some rather spectacular finishes of the Indianapolis 500-mile race throughout the entire history, which stretches back all the way to 1911. But in 1967, it was A.J. Foyt leading the race, and suddenly, just before the end of the race, he slowed down. He knew something was going on.
Flag for A.J. Foyt. He had 2 laps to go before, but now all he has to do is negotiate each of these 4 turns one more time, and it's all over. A.J. Foyt will win his 3rd Indianapolis 500, a great comeback after last year's disappointing season for him.
Well, he drove a great race. He just stayed in there all day long, grit his teeth, and there's an accident on the front straightaway.
2, 3, 4 cars. Where's Foyt? I don't know whether he can get through or not.
Another car hitting the wall, bouncing back across the straightaway.
Foyt's only got a couple hundred yards to go, but where is he? There he is!
He's running it through.
A.J. Foyt will win the Indianapolis 500 in an incredible, thrilling finish.
Well, 10 years later, A.J. Foyt in 1977 scored a 4th Indianapolis victory to become the first man ever to accomplish that feat. Now, let's go down to the garage areas once again. Brian Hammonds.
Paul, this Buick engine could propel Jim Crawford to the pole position when we do qualify here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jim, yesterday, just a tick under 226 miles per hour.
Yeah, it's working quite well now.
Now, the guys from Chevrolet, the guys that have Chevrolet engines say the Buick has more horsepower. Is that really the case?
I don't know why they're saying that. It's they're going quicker than us, only a little bit, but I think we're pretty equal at the moment.
A couple of years ago, you were badly injured. Your feet were badly injured here during qualifying. Is it still, do you still feel some discomfort while you're driving?
When it's cold and rainy, yeah, they stiffen up a little, but when I'm driving, it's no problem.
Now, are you able to run road courses with those injuries?
Not at the present time, no. I'm going to make an attempt soon, and maybe if the Buick engine goes into a road course, I'll hopefully be with it.
All right, now you face some possible surgery, am I correct?
I think there's one more on the cards to straighten out the right foot.
All right, Jim Crawford, he may be on the pole when this thing's all said and done. Paul?
Well, Jim certainly is the pick of many here to sit on the pole when the time to qualify comes. We'll be back with more from the first day of time trials in Indianapolis. Neva was the first through the 200-mile-an-hour barrier, scoring the first pole for the Penske team.
Well, Al Jr. and I are enjoying what you're watching on TV inside of his motorhome, but we want to take a look now and go back and take a look at what makes this such a great racing facility known as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And for that tour and that information, here's my colleague Paul Page.
It was 1908, the beginning of the automotive age. Henry Ford introduced the Model T. The General Motors Company was organized, with the first car with interchangeable parts gaining national attention. Unnoticed at the time was the sale of 320 acres of farmland on the outskirts of Indianapolis, soon to be internationally recognized as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was the dream of Hoosier auto manufacturer Carl Fisher to provide a testing ground for American car manufacturers, something that was already being done successfully in Europe. Fisher hoped the Speedway would even out the domination of European car manufacturers over the Americans. A fierce competitor himself in everything from bicycles to cars to balloons, Fisher's dream was to have car manufacturers racing against each other and then use what they learned to build better passenger cars.
Fisher, propelled by James Allison and two of his friends, Arthur Newby and Frank Wheeler, paid $250,000 for that dream. It was February 8, 1909. It was the beginning of the greatest spectacle in racing. It was the beginning of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. When the track opened for its first 500-mile race in 1911, Fisher's dream had already been altered by events a year earlier. His desire to offer fans a variety of races throughout the year had failed. The inaugural balloon race in 1909 had been a dismal failure, and a motorcycle meet that year was a complete fiasco. Only auto races run in August captured the attention of race fans, but they too were marred by two separate accidents that resulted in the Speedway's first 4 fatalities.
Well, Hal, that was certainly a good display of what it was like in the old days, but what's it like out here in the brand new 1989 Surface? You've had some trouble with engines, but it looks as if you may have had that problem licked.
Yeah, I think it's going pretty good. The new Surface is definitely better, and it's a lot smoother. And actually, the speeds are coming from the new Surface, and the Goodyear tires are quite a lot better, too. So.
If you can hear the horn in the background, that's Al Sr., who's parked next door to us trying to get even with his son. It's been kind of a repartee back and forth during the telecast, but we've got to also ask the question, and we've talked about it since Long Beach when you and I had the interview in Victory Lane, and then you went up to Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and talked things over. Has that all been put aside? It's all said and done. We're back to racing and looking for the Indianapolis 500 victory.
You bet. It's all over with, and we're just here hoping that the rain would quit and so that we can get qualifying underway and find out where we're going to start.
Well, we're sitting here in some pretty good, luxurious accommodations, enjoying the rain as it goes down, hoping for qualifying. But let's check in with Brian Hammonds, because he's a place where maybe it isn't appointed so luxuriously.
Well, what do you do when it rains? When you're Johnny Rutherford's crew and you've been up late all week working on the car, you take the time to catch up on some shut-eye. For these guys, well, this is a very welcome rain delay. We'll be back right after this.
Live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the barbecue grills are all out, fired up, and ready to go. It is still, in fact, raining, though, at the Speedway. It takes this track about 2 hours to dry, so there certainly is still the possibility of some action before this day is out. Now, the last time, Sam Posey, that there was a rain out of the first day of qualifications was in 1978. The pole day was rained out. Interestingly enough, also the next day. The forecast is 30% chance of rain tomorrow in Indianapolis. It may give Danny Sullivan a chance to yet run for the pole.
You know, I think the interesting thing about Sullivan is if he does get a few days of recuperation, remember that of all the race drivers, he is arguably the fittest. He works at it every day, 3 or 4 hours of calisthenics and working out. That will pay him immense dividends this week, because if you're fit, you recover faster. He's always been lucky here. You think of the spin he had several years ago and went on to win. And I just hope for all the best for Danny. I think everybody here does.
Well, the question we'll be asking and the story we'll be watching is whether or not Danny Sullivan yet has a possibility of a run for the pole. Now, throughout the afternoon, we'll continue to update you live from here at the Speedway. We'll keep track of all the activity back in the garage area. And additionally, there'll be plenty of other action coming up this afternoon. Now, a little bit, we'll be coming back here. Right now, we'll be coming up with the golf, the Memorial Tournament from over in Dublin, Ohio. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is very, very wet at the moment, but it can dry out very quickly. And when it does, we expect to see a great deal of action. So we'll continue to wait and watch here with Sam Posey and Bobby Youngster. The executive producer of the Indianapolis 500 Time Trials is Jeffrey Mason. Coverage of the Indianapolis 500 Time Trials was produced by Bob Goodrich. Directed by Don Ohlmeyer. Technical Director Richard Drummond. Associate Producers Ben Harvey and Debbie Cole. Associate Directors Jeff Cohan and Vince D'Addario.